Oh no.
Round 2. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Costume Moms. As always, I'm Cait and this is...
I'm Amber.
Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different in which we go through our favorite costuming films. We have narrowed this list down to our top 5, but we haven't talked to each other about them. But first, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm going off of less sleep than normal because we have a teething baby, but other than that, can't complain too much. So,
Are you sure?
I mean, I could complain about last night, about the lack of truffles.
Please tell the story of the wayward truffles.
Okay, so part of my whip report is that I am cleaning my studio, and in doing that I needed some more containers, so I decided to go to Walmart, which is not something I enjoy doing, but I just finished a commission. I was going to Walmart and I thought, I deserve something. I don't snack. I don't ever buy myself candy, so let's just go do this. And I was going to get some Lindt truffles. I really like the super dark chocolate ones. So I go and I look and I pick out the truffles and I think that I have put them in my cart. Okay? Because that's what you do when you go buy stuff. So I go around through the store, go through the checkout, and I get home. And I realize when I get home that I can't find the truffles. They're not in the bag. They're not in the back of my car. They're not in the containers that I bought. And I'm freaking out because I really wanted these truffles. This is a bad thing. I look at my receipt and they're not on the receipt. So, 3, maybe 4 things could have happened. The first one, which is the most likely, is I am misremembering that I had picked them up from the thing and put them in my cart, which is embarrassing if that's what happened. Number 2, I have seen very shady things happen where people steal things out of carts. So, and I think I had it in the top front area, like where it was like sticking out, easy to get. Somebody could have taken it. I want to believe that more so than my being stupid and not putting it in my cart.
I'd rather some creeper grab your truffles.
Hey, truffles are good. But anyway,
Yeah.
So the other option is I forgot to ring it in and it was still in the cart and remained in the cart and into the cart corral in the parking lot after I left. So anyway, I was really super sad. I got home, after I realized, my mistake, I just kind of moped around the house. And was like, oh, my truffles, I wanted truffles. But my husband had to go to Walmart today, so I was like, can you please get me truffles?
And he successfully brought them?
He got the right ones because
Awesome.
I wrote down I was like, it's the Lindt truffles in the black bag. They're at eye level. So, anyway, I have them now. I haven't eaten any yet, but I can see the bag. It's right there. I'm coming for it.
They're waiting for you.
Yep. But
Well,
anyway,
I'm so glad they made their way home to you today.
finally. It was very, very sad, but I'm happy now. How are you?
I'm okay. I've been very productive today doing all the housewife things, and not housewife things that people would, that's a stupid word. Why do they call it that? Okay, not sewing housewife where you roll your stuff. Housekeeping things, in which I've done lots of laundry and cleaned the kitchen and fed my family and probably other things. Did a Target run. So, productive today. No sewing, but, I'm alright.
She's awake. So, technical difficulty number 56.
Oh no!
We might have to do some of this with my baby in my lap, but we'll roll.
That's Mom's. So for the whip report, Amber already gave hers. You're doing cleaning and you're doing organizing of the sewing space.
Correct.
I am trying to decide what I want to work on next because I finished half of the masks that I was working on last time because I couldn't be bothered to do them all because it's awful. And I'm working on a 1490s shift still because my wrist, of course, is acting up and there are lots of tiny hems, so I've got that going on. Got lacy Edwardian drawers in front of me, wanting to start them, but then also I have my next Felicity project. I'm kind of wanting to get started on that, so I'm kind of bouncing around based on what I feel like doing in the moment and based on what my wrist will let me do because it's trying to fall off or something. So I think we're going to get on to the topic. And as I mentioned today, we're going to be doing a list of our favorite costume dramas. We have narrowed this down to only films, so even though there are many, many amazing period miniseries and shows, we are just doing films for this. But neither of us have talked to each other about what's on our list, so this is going to be a surprise. And they may overlap, they may not. So we're going to start with number 5 and work our way to our number 1 costume drama. I keep wanting to say costuming drama because of Noelle, but costume drama film. What's your number 5?
My criteria for these might differ from what other people would consider their favorite film. So I kind of anguished over this for a little bit because I have so many. So I had to put some criteria on it to make sense of it in my brain. And I decided that what made this list were things that were mostly historically accurate, that weren't like glaringly awful, and were just enjoyable films to me. And so like all of them have at least one memorable costume. So that's kind of how I ranked them. So my number 5 is called The Lightkeepers, and it's a movie from 2009 with Richard Dreyfuss and Blythe Danner, and it's set in 1912. And I gush about this movie all the time because it's just such a sweet, silly film. But the gist of it is, without giving anything away, is Richard Dreyfuss is a cantankerous old man that is a lighthouse keeper. And so he is a woman hater, and that's the whole thing of the show. Like, he talks about how he's a woman hater and all the time. And then Blythe Danner comes into the scene and creates chaos, and it's really cute. So anyway, the reason I chose this particular film as being my number 5 is because I have watched it several times. I saw it on Amazon Prime. You might still be able to watch it there. But it has a lot of really cute bathing costumes that you usually don't get to see very often. Also, there's no hairpin shortage. So, like, there's, amongst people that are costumers, there's this funny little saying that we have called the hairpin shortage, where all of these women in historical films are depicted with their hair basically like this.
With
all
tendrils.
the time. Yeah, with their hair just falling down in tresses, which, you know, that's, I'm sure at some point someone looked like that, but most women had their hair up. Even now, most women have their hair up in a bun. Of some sort. That's why I have this all the time on my arm. So anyway, there's no hairpin shortage, and the looks of Blythe Danner and
Oh, is it Mamie Gummer?
Yes. So she's in it. Is that Meryl Streep's daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Trivia.
So she's the younger. She's in, you know, much more hip clothing for 1912, and then you've got Blythe Danner, who is in decidedly older clothing, but it's still reminiscent of what you would have seen if you would have been there. So awesome. I really love the film by itself, and it's really cute to just like watch and see, and it's by the seaside, so like how could it not be enjoyable?
Right, that makes sense. I really want to watch that. I've never heard of it. This sounds delightful.
Yeah, it's so cute. But anyway, so what's your number 5?
I will preface this with saying I do not have the same criteria as Amber because I basically didn't do my homework properly. I just was like, I like that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. So for me, my number 5 is Elizabeth, which is, I think it came out in 1998. It stars Cate Blanchett as Queen Elizabeth I, and you can't see it now, but I have a massive portrait of the Queen Elizabeth I right here because she is the queen of my heart and wonderful. And before I was even into the 18th century, I was into the Tudors. So this movie was like everything for me when I was younger. It's about Elizabeth and her early life and becoming queen and whatever. But it's not, you know, I wouldn't write a report on it, but that's normal for movies. Anyway, it's great. The costumings are really, what's the word I'm looking for? They definitely evoke the period without being super accurate. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But it's definitely whimsical and wonderful.
It's a really good film.
Yeah.
It's a long film.
It is really long. And I'm going to put a picture of my favorite one on the screen. This is from the very beginning of the film where Elizabeth she's not queen yet. She's very young and free and everything's flowing and wonderful and idealistic. So it's my favorite.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite, like, part of the film when it comes to the costumes, just because they're, like, they're so light and they're so pretty, and I also gravitate more toward the understated, so the gaudy stuff later on is not really my stuff. I want to make the stuff
my very favorite portrait of Elizabeth is when she's only 13 years old, and it's a very, I don't know if you've seen, I'm sure you've seen it. It's like a red dress, very plain. And then she gets older and she's like, I'm the queen and I've got everything. And I'm like, that's not as cute. But, that's Elizabethan fashion for you.
Right.
But the earlier Tudor fashion when she's younger, it's really pretty. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
That's a good number 5. So my number 4, with which anybody that knows me won't be surprised about this, is actually Anne of Avonlea, or for those of you that did not grow up with it necessarily or came into the Anne mania later, Anne the sequel is what it's called now. So if you search for it, it's called Anne of Green Gables, the sequel. It was filmed in 1987, and this is the one with Meg Follows. It's set in like 1902 to 1903. So it's not at all what the books talk about. So they kind of mishmash everything together. But it follows Anne from when she leaves Green Gables and before she marries Gilbert. Just kind of her basic, I mean, you could call it most people's early 20s.
Yeah.
So she's just like going through life trying to figure out who she is and what she wants in life. And the reason I love this movie is because the 80s and the 90s did Edwardian really well. And I think it's because everyone had big hair.
And big sleeves.
So, like, and tiny waists. Like, that was the look. You wanted to be like, wah! And then have the big, apple bottom.
Yeah.
With this tiny little waist. And, she's a tiny person anyway. So if you put any padding at any point, she looks perfect. I think that they used a lot of antique costumes for this film. I know a lot of them were built for her, but she is small enough that even with the survival bias, she could probably wear most of the clothing, or like a lot of clothing that's, antique.
Yeah.
So I love all the costumes from this movie. I don't know if there's a single one that I don't like. So that's kind of hard to do. But yeah. I like Anne of Avonlea better than Anne of Green Gables. If we're going to be picky. So
I still haven't seen any of those. I really need to. But I'm trying to read the books first.
Well, you should do that too.
Yeah. It's what I tell my kid she has to do. Read the book and then see the movie. So I'm practicing what I preach here. Yep.
So what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Belle. This movie is inspired, I think it's specifically inspired by the painting, which the date of this has been debated recently, but basically it's a painting of Dido Elizabeth Belle, who is a woman of color who happens to live with her wealthy white relatives in England. It stars, I really hope I say this correctly, the actress that plays Dido is Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And the movie came out in 2013. We've got a woman of color in a starring role on historical film, which is not usual. And I love it. And I'm sure that we could do a lot better in this area. But I'm glad that they made this movie. It's very pretty. Costumes are really lovely. I think my favorite one is probably the least accurate one, which I'll put on the screen. It's very pink. Yeah, it's a great film. And it's nice to see they speak on enslavement and whether or not that's okay, because the family that Dido lives with, her great uncle is the Chief Justice of England, so he has a lot of power, and it kind of talks about the build up to eventually England abolishing the slave trade. And it's fascinating. Not entirely accurate, but really interesting nonetheless. So yeah, it's one of my faves.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
I agree. The costumes are very, like, ethereal type of 18th century. I actually don't have a single 18th century thing on my list.
Like, all of mine are 18th century. Well, they're not all, but more than half. Well, that's okay. I'll make up for you then.
That works. But yeah, it's a really good film. The storyline is pretty solid. I know that people have disputed some things about it, but it's an enjoyable film, and everybody should see it.
Yeah, it's not inaccurate in, like, overall. I think the problems is it tried to make it more cinematic than it actually was, which that's normal. That's what you do.
Right, there's conjecture and stuff which happens.
A little bit.
But they're trying to make a cohesive film. So that's what you have to keep in mind.
It's a solid film, so that's my 4.
So, technical difficulty number 89.
We're on 3, right?
Yes, we are on 3, and I apologize that my child has woken up earlier than intended, but here she is. This is Emma.
She's so squishy.
This is the teething one. But, yeah. Okay, so my number 3 is Little Women from 1994.
Okay, I was about to be like, what? Like, I thought you were going to say the recent one, and I was just like, we have to end this right now.
No, thank you. That is not my jam. But anyway, yeah. I really like the 1994 version. I think that, based on the book itself, that Winona Ryder is way too pretty to be Meg, but she does the perfect Meg.
Meg or Jo?
Oh, that's what I mean. Jo. Sorry.
Okay.
I am a fan. Please don't kill me. I think that she is like the perfect Jo, but she's too pretty based on the books.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't read the book. I really slack in that area.
Yeah, there's only one. But yeah, so she is supposed to be kind of aloof, so I think that like the newer ones are more of what I pictured Jo to be when I read the book as a kid. Where it's like she's pretty, but she's not like ridiculously beautiful. Yeah. Are you talking to the camera too? Yeah. I chose this one because it's one of those movies that me and my mom and me and Anne, like, we all watch it all the time.
Yeah.
I was just going crazy. The costumes themselves are really good. So this one is set from 1862 to 1870 is what it's supposed to be. And if you know anything about that time period, the progression is pretty good when it comes to how they decided to have those costumes. Amy's costumes at the end are a little bit too fashion forward in my opinion for somebody, but she's supposed to be in France, which whenever people go abroad, it's like, oh wow, everything is perfectly in vogue. But my favorite outfits from those are Meg's blue afternoon dress before she goes to the actual ball, and when all of the people or the other ladies are making fun of her. Well, slyly making fun of her and then con her into wearing silk. And then the other one is Jo's gray dress when she's like hanging out with Professor Bear for the first time. That is my favorite dress. Gray is a solid color. I wear a lot of gray anyway, and like just having a good silhouette with a nice gray thing, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. No. So it makes it even more sleek. I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Little Women 1994. That's my number 3.
That's number 3 for you.
Yeah.
My number 3 is also in the 19th century, which is odd for me because it's not generally my area of interest or anything.
Okay.
But mine is The Young Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a 2009 movie starring Emily Blunt as Victoria, the Queen of England. And the film starts in 1830, I think it might start in 1836, but it's right before she becomes queen, so she's turning 18, and it goes all the way until the birth of her first child. So she marries her wonderful Albert, and it's great because we don't have a lot of films where the costumes are 1830s or 1840s. That's not common. I don't know a whole lot about that period, but from what I can tell is they're really well done. And it's one situation where we actually see stays. She's getting dressed in one point, and they're decent stays. There's not any like tight lacing going on. It's not nonsense, and I love that because we never get that in historical films.
It's
really
true. Yeah, a lot of times there's always the corset cinching trope. Yeah, and this one it's casually there because
they're just like they're getting undressed. They're taking in that same scene, the mom's pulling out her hair pieces, which I love.
Yeah.
And it's a great, I really enjoyed the film. It prompted me to make my one and only 1830s dress. And it's a solid film. I don't know about accuracy. There's a lot of stuff in there that I know happened. But I don't know if it happened when they said it happened.
Right.
But either way, it's really enjoyable. And Emily Blunt is one of my favorites in general.
I agree.
It's a pretty film.
Bonnets alone are so swoon-worthy. Oh
they're
my
amazing.
Gosh.
I don't even care about bonnets in general, but I'm like, that's nice. And it's good enough to fool both of us. We have a little bit of knowledge.
It's true.
But not a whole lot. And it fools us pretty well. So they're doing all right, I think.
Yeah, I think there's only like one costume in that one that to me doesn't look accurate. Or not like perfectly accurate. But that doesn't mean that it's not. It just means that I don't know.
Yeah.
So...
My favorite from that is right at the very beginning. She's going to her uncle's birthday party. Mm-hmm. It's yellow and it's got a lacy overlay.
Yes.
And that's actually what I made with my 1830s dress, but mine's black.
Okay.
And so my overlay that I'm actually refitting it. I didn't finish it because I made it the day before an event. But I'm refitting it now and putting a lace overlay to match that. So it's like pretty Victoria, but spoopy.
Well, so. I would love to venture into 1830s. There's not any 1830s, 1840s events around, so.
Yeah, I snuck the 1830s into a Victorian event.
Okay.
Last year. I was like, so does 1837 count? And she's like, sure. So wait, what number are we on? Are we on number 2 already?
We're on number 2.
Amazing. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Tombstone. I laugh only because this is like a Western. There aren't a whole lot of women's dresses in it. But just take it. So Tombstone is one of my all-time favorite movies in general. I have a soft spot for Westerns. I don't know why. But I love Westerns.
She loves them too.
She really, really wants to talk. So, so Westerns themselves are really fun. And this particular one was made in 1993, and it's set in 1879 with the shootout at the OK Corral. And there are several dresses in it that are really, really good. My favorites are the riding habit that she has. It's got like a side closure on it. It's basic black. It's not crazy. It's really just nicely fitted. She looks good in it. And also the opening dress, it's got like this pink trim, pink piping, but it's a gray gown and it is so pretty. There's another one that's gray and blue. I like gray. But there's also a gown in it that's horrible, and it's a gown that's made of gold lame. And yeah, so
I already don't like it.
So there are such things as like cloth of silver, cloth of gold, but this is obviously a gold lame, and it's bad.
I'm gonna have to watch this. I'm not a big fan of Westerns, but my dad is, so maybe I'll have him like.
Oh, he's probably seen it because it's one of the recent ones, and I have to say there's a lot of really good recent Westerns where the tailoring looks really nice. And this one, the tailoring is perfection. Like, everybody looks fantastic. It's a guy's movie. Like, most dudes have seen it. Not many women have seen it from what I've gleaned. But
we're gonna fix that.
So check it out. It's really good.
In direct contrast to that, my number 2 is one almost every historical costumer has seen, and if you haven't, where have you been? My number 2 is Marie Antoinette. It's the 2006 with Kirsten Dunst. And here's why it's my favorite. Obviously inaccurate. And it knows that, and it owns that. There are Converse in this movie, and that makes me really happy.
There are Converse in it?
Yeah. There's a scene where they're, like, going through Marie Antoinette's shoes, and there's some Converse involved.
Oh.
Like, they're not trying to make this accurate. The reason I like it is because the shapes, generally speaking, are correct. It's all very pretty. It's happy. The entire movie looks like a cake, which is hilarious considering her misquoted nonsense about let them eat cake. And I swear they did that on purpose. But there's just like some really quality costuming in that film. I really love it. Accuracy completely unimportant to me in this sense. That's a movie I put on when I just want to not think and I need to sew or something and I just want something enjoyable in the background, and that's the one it is for me.
It's on my honorable mentions list because I really enjoy just how cupcakey, like you said, the whole movie is.
Yeah.
It's like that's the feeling of the movie, and it's oh no, Emma. All right, so we're to the number ones.
We're at number one already. Amber, what's your number one costuming film?
Okay, so my number one is Immortal Beloved. And it's a movie about Beethoven, made in 1994. It's got Gary Oldman, Isabel Rossellini, and it's set from, like, the bulk of the movie is from 1812 to 1827. It follows Beethoven in Europe when he's kind of going about his most famous time, and when he starts becoming deaf, and everything is, like, he's feeling everything crashing down on him. But this movie is so good. Like, I cried every time. It is so worth watching. And also, it's beautiful to look at. There are so many costumes from the women in this movie that have floated around on Pinterest that are mislabeled as historically accurate extant garments. The one that I think of as the iconic one that's always on Pinterest is it's blue and gold. And as she comes to this party late, one of his students, and her dress is just billowing. And it's like this super high-waisted gown with a teeny, teeny, tiny bust line. And this gown is just floating behind her. And it's absolutely gorgeous. But it's mislabeled as being a historically accurate gown on Pinterest. So anyway, just so everybody knows, the costumes in this movie are fantastic. They even have a scene where that same character is wearing a gown where you can actually see her nipples. Which it's not done in a way that's supposed to be sexual, I don't think, because there are lots of French and European portraits of women where you can see the contours of their breast. And I think that's what they were going for, because it didn't seem overly sexual to me as a modern viewer. But, like, they paid attention to so many little details. Gary Oldman's in it, which, I mean, it's hard to beat having him in a movie. But he's just so good at, like, melding into the clothes, melding into the character, that, I don't know, it is one of my favorite films.
I cannot believe we've gone through both of our lists, and I'm about to do my number one, but we haven't had any overlaps.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I was fully expecting us to have a really weird number of films to recommend, but it's basically 10. So my number one is The Duchess, which is basically, I'm going to like just about anything with Keira Knightley in it because she's like my number one human. But this movie is wonderful because it showcases a part of, it actually starts at the same point where Marie Antoinette starts. 1770s goes on. Both movies progress in their costuming. The Duchess does it a little bit better, where you can actually see, okay, I know what decade we're in now.
Right.
For the general viewer, they probably wouldn't, but in the back of their minds, they're realizing that time is changing because the costumes are changing. So anyway, this movie, it was made, I believe, in 2008. And it follows Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, very fashionable lady, basically the Marie Antoinette of England, because we're ignoring the fact that they also had a queen. She basically set the fashion for a lot of people in England, and she designed a lot of her own clothing, and she also had a really troubled marriage, and there's lots of fascinating things that happen in this movie that you should definitely watch. And I think, just like with Belle, though, my favorite one is the least accurate.
Oh, which one? Is it the fox costume?
No, but I love that.
That's my favorite one from the movie.
It's so cool. No, my absolute favorite from this film, it's a pink gown. And
is it
the shapes are correct. No, it's right. It's like middle to end.
Oh. Okay.
It's in like the worst possible scene. But basically, it's the shapes of the costumes are all correct. Some of the fabrics are wrong. But I just think they did a really amazing job in general.
They did. All of the characters look absolutely perfect. There's not, with 18th century clothing, like, the goal is to have this most smooth bodice possible. And they did that really well. My favorite costumes actually aren't Keira Knightley's. They are, she's Peggy on Captain America.
Oh, I know her name. Why can't I think of it?
Yeah, she's got dark hair. Those are my favorite.
They're really pretty. Honestly, there's not a single costume in that film that I don't like.
Really?
But yeah, I love looking at literally everything. Even the children. There are children in this movie, and they are dressed correctly in their little white frocks with their sashes, and it's just...
Yeah, what I also like about that one is that they show someone being pregnant in these clothes, which doesn't happen
And she's
very
wearing
often.
stays.
Yeah. You know, there's other parts of her being pregnant and what she's doing that's a little bit like, to modern eyes. But, it's very cool to see it actually happen where she's not just wearing, like, a sack. Because a lot of movies, when someone's pregnant, it's a bad thing. So they're, like, in squalor and, like, bleh, and looking not good. But she's in fashionable clothing and pregnant, which is just cool to see.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that they still wore the same stuff.
They did.
when they were pregnant. Including stays.
Yep.
Yeah. I really wish I had had stays when I was pregnant. I feel like that would have helped a lot.
I really enjoyed mine because they give you the back support.
Mm-hmm,
that a lot of people really need, and you're not, because you're getting ready to feed this baby, so this is getting bigger. And when I had the stays on, I didn't have this feeling of my body, because when you have weight on the front, that's how you want to just be. And
like me all the time.
So it's great because they give you the same back support as before, and also keep the bust up. Yeah. Which is great, because I really don't like feeling sweaty under there.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, it's gross. But anyway, we don't need to talk about that.
We'll talk about that on another episode.
So what are your honorable mentions? We had, like, no overlap, which is basically amazing.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was going to happen. I have a huge list of honorable mentions that are actually period dramas, but they're series or shows, which we will probably talk about another time. But the film that I have as my honorable mention is the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. This is an unpopular opinion, because most people are like, oh my gosh, Colin Firth. But, he's great, whatever. He's fine. But the 2005 Pride and Prejudice is set in the 1790s, which is awesome because that's when the book was originally written. It was written in 1795, and there are not a lot of movies that take place in the 1790s. And what I really like about it is that they have all the silhouettes. Mrs. Bennet, who was an older lady, she's still wearing the conical shape. She's got her stays, she looks like 1780s, basically. But then her daughters, especially Jane, the oldest daughter, has a more, her clothing looks more like 1800 to me. And then the other daughters are definitely like solid 1790s. And I really enjoy that because we don't normally see that time period in movies very well.
Right.
And if we do, it's like, there's like 1770s, 1815. There's no 1790s.
Yeah, and 1790s was kind of like the decade of experimentation. They were trying to figure out what was going on, like how were things going to progress, and so they were just trying different things out.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that film does well, is portraying that,
things were changing. I mean, there's Caroline Bingley, and she's got
her sleeveless
a strapless dress, which I thought was ridiculous, but at the same time, there are paintings and like fashion plates with that nonsense. So
yeah,
it's not actually that insane.
I like that one as a pick-me-up.
Yeah.
Because it kind of shoots through the story, and, for better or for worse. But I don't think it's a bad film. The music and the cinematography is
It's so pretty. The miniseries definitely does better as far as telling the story. Right. But yeah, I really like this film.
Yeah, I agree. That one didn't make my honorable mentions, though, so we don't even have overlap there. So my first really, like, my favorite one, honorable mention of this list is The Painted Veil. That movie, it's set in the 1920s, early 1930s maybe, I can't remember, but it's got Naomi Watts and the guy on Fight Club. He's not Brad Pitt.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, that's a really good one to watch if you want like a fun 1920s evocative film. The Last Station. This is this one is set and it follows Leo Tolstoy in his last year, I think 2 years of life. It's got Helen Mirren and Christopher Plummer, and it's set in the 19-teens. Sense and Sensibility, the 1990s version. That one is a favorite of mine. I watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Young Goethe in Love. This is the only foreign film that I have on my list, I think, that's not English. But it's about Goethe, and it's a lovely film to watch, and if you don't mind, reading subtitles, if you're able to focus, which is the reason I don't watch many subtitled films, is because I have so many things, like kids running around. I can't read it all the time. But that's a really good one to watch. And then I have The Dressmaker. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, but it's on my list of things to watch.
Good. That one takes place in the 1940s, 1950s, right around there.
Yeah.
It's got Kate Winslet in it.
Yeah.
And then I have Westerns. So I have The Hostels, The Hateful Eight, and The Mummy. I really like Westerns.
I see that. I wouldn't even think of The Mummy as a Western.
Well, it's kind of, I guess it's not actually a Western.
It definitely has the same general feel, though.
I love the characters. I love the actors themselves. It's a really fun, shoot 'em up, historically archaeological film. But yeah, so I have even more films that I haven't seen that when I was searching, I was like, oh, I need to watch this. Oh, I need to watch this. So that might be another one. What new ones have we watched?
We're going to have to talk more about this, because I could list films forever that I've seen and why I liked them or why I didn't like them. Maybe we should do like a top 5 worst costume dramas.
That would probably be very helpful to people.
Yeah. Like, here's some that you should watch only if you want to be incredibly angry.
Right.
This was fun. I'm really glad we didn't have any overlap. I was not expecting that. But
so it's our top 10 films, I guess.
Yeah, our top 10 costume films, not costuming dramas, because that's Noelle. I feel like a slacker, because mine are all pretty mainstream, except for like my miniseries, because I love some Korean historical dramas, but they're all series, so that didn't count.
Right.
But yeah, I need to catch up.
Well, see, I don't watch many miniseries, and as we talked about before, like, I don't have anything that's really foreign, non-English. So that's what I need to focus on, is looking at some things that aren't just, like, Anglo-centric.
For our inspiration recommendation today, all of these films.
Watch them all.
That's your inspiration for today.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us while we had about 8 million technical difficulties and a baby and a dog, and yeah.
We're alive.
We are.
That's made the important part.
We made it through, and now I'm going to go watch some costume dramas.
And everybody, please let us know what your top 5 are.
Yep.
Because, like, the more recommendations, the better. I want more things to watch while I'm sewing.
I didn't think for a second that she was going to say anything that I'd never heard of, which is clearly not what occurred. So I can only imagine how many things that the rest of you would have to share that maybe no one's ever heard of. So please put it in the comments. Like this video if you did like it. If you didn't, my bad. And please remember to subscribe to both of our channels. Costume Guide should be coming back up, so that'll tell you which channel this series will pop up on next. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, hit the little bell thingy that we discussed last episode.
Yes.
There's a bell.
What she's trying to say is please hit the notification bell, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Talk to you guys
Bye.
later. Bye. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
There are lots of costumes. There are lots. Fred, get out of here. Now my dog is in here. Go, Fred.
Fred, get out of here.